in a case of lethal force in Susanville, California's High Desert State Prison. On Tuesday, November 29th, 2022, at around 10:52 a.m., inmates Frank Nanez and Raul Cuen began attacking fellow inmate Anthony Aguilera. They had inmate-manufactured weapons, and although staff would respond and issue verbal orders to stop and get down, they were quickly ignored. Secondly, a warning shot from a Mini-14 rifle would be fired into the air, also having zero effect. The next step was taken, and both Nanez and Cuen sustained multiple gunshot wounds. As the attack died down, aid was administered to Aguilera, Cuen, and Nanez. Aguilera was hospitalized and was listed in serious condition. However, at 11:44 a.m., inmate Cuen and inmate Nanez were each pronounced deceased.
The detail pays special attention.
We're from Hayward. A Street. You know where A Street area is? We live right over there. And they already knew where we were from before they put us over. Oh, really?
Concern over the Bay Area's growing number of street gangs has caused some police departments to begin exchanging gang intelligence. The gangs aren't confined to their hometowns. They travel to party, and sometimes they travel for trouble.
Aquí estamos.
The detail pays special attention.
Entire groups clashing over just whether it's a red or blue color that they're claiming.
Oh, I think that's dumb because they're fighting over a color and the Latinos are killing Latinos.
You want to come out of towners, want to come over here, you feel me? You violating us, you feel me? You can't come from out of town and try to disrespect Oakland, none of that. There's consequences to that.
There's so much violence in this area because it's the Rangos out here. Police say another factor is that with so many Latinos moving in, they are occupying neighborhoods that have traditionally been African American.
That's a bullet right there.
And the bullets are flying. How did somebody get a gun? Is that just that easy?
Man, if you got $250, I can get you a gun. Hey, Doc, you got some money, I can buy you a gun.
Police say there is no defined Norteno or Sereno territory in Oakland. Instead, gang members drive around in cars, literally hunting members of the others' gangs.
The Clara counties.
Could Nike's new Air Jordan basketball shoes spark deadly gang violence? That's what Bay Area police and authorities in surrounding areas fear, and now they're trying to prevent it. Tony Russomanno explains from Salinas.
Police in San Jose and several other Northern California cities say they are intensely interested in Nike's latest Air Jordan basketball shoes. What got their attention was a letter to Nike from the mayor of Salinas warning that the shoes could lead to violence. The police interest is not in who's wearing them necessarily, but in what it means when they do.
Our biggest concern is that a nationally distributed product by a internationally known corporate name would be used to further promote the ideologies of a criminal organization.
That organization would be Northern California's Norteno street gang.
And Michael pulls up and buries the shot to give him a 1-point lead.
The shoes are the 14th edition of basketball superstar Michael Jordan's wildly popular line. So they carry the number 14 in Roman numerals in a red circle on the sole. The color and the numerals XIV are used by Norteno gang members to identify themselves. The letter N is the 14th letter of the alphabet. And gang members mark their territory with their symbols.
You can imagine seeing them walking through dirt alleys or something, leaving little XIVs all over the floor, you know.
Gang outreach workers say even non-gang members who unknowingly display a gang symbol in a rival's territory have been shot and stabbed. The shoes cost $150 a pair. You might think that price would put off a lot of potential buyers, but Salinas police say local stores have sold out of their first 2 shipments and won't even be getting any more in until March. Nike says they have no intention to stop selling them, but the company is taking out newspaper ads in Salinas and Chico this weekend to emphasize what a spokeswoman calls the company's and Michael Jordan's values.
The solution is helping build strong communities and helping build strong programs. And that's where we choose to focus our efforts on in addressing this issue. That truly is the answer.
Police say it would be futile to try to prevent sale of the shoes. Instead, they want parents to be aware of what their kids are wearing and why they're wearing it. In Salinas, Tony Russomanno, Channel 5.
California, a controversy is escalating over claims of abusive and racist treatment in the state prison system. Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger and state Senate leaders announced this week they're backing a full-scale investigation of alleged racism and cruelty by guards at the High Desert State Prison in Susanville. Officials said the move came in response to a two-part expose published Sunday and Monday by the Sacramento Bee. The Bee investigation found evidence of brutality, cruelty, and corruption by correctional officers at a special behavior modification unit at the prison.
Prisoners described strip searches in a snow-covered exercise yard, as well as guards who assaulted prisoners, tried to provoke attacks between prisoners, and spread human excrement on cell doors. Prisoners depicted an environment of brutality, corruption, and fear that included the withholding of medical care, racial slurs, and an apparent cover-up of abuse allegations by prison officials. The series also described extreme isolation, idleness, and deprivation in similar units at other prisons. Charles Pillar is the investigative reporter at the Sacramento Bee who broke the story. He joins us now from Sacramento. Charles, welcome to Democracy Now! Just lay out what you found.
Well, what I found was a troubling pattern of behavior, particularly at High Desert, but also to some degree extending to other prisons in the California system that have these what were originally called behavior modification units, and then the name was changed some years later to behavior management units as a way of removing the taint from the old days of behavior modification in prisons that involved even more horrific kinds of experiments on prisoners. Now, I originally heard of this story. I heard that a report had been created by the state's own correctional researchers that looked closely at the behavior modification unit at High Desert and found evidence based on the testimony of a number of different prisoners that they had experienced this kind of cruelty and brutality, including beatings, including the shackling of one prisoner and having him be pepper sprayed at point blank range, not decontaminated, and paraded naked through the cell block in a way that that prisoner and others who witnessed the event regarded as a kind of image of modern slavery. This was a pretty alarming set of facts to learn. And so, of course, I wanted to look further. I was able to corroborate all of the stories that the state researchers originally found out, and also extend that to a variety of other very troubling allegations associated with beatings, contamination of food supplies, and probably in some ways the most troubling in a way of these issues was the destruction of evidence associated with the claims and the corruption of the process that prisoners have to be able to protest conditions that they regard as inhumane.
Now, these behavior management units, how do they differ from what's normally referred to, I guess, as isolation cells in these prisons? And what are they supposed to do that's different from those isolation cells?
Yes, well, these units were established, I think, for a good reason, which is that normally in the state prisons here, there are essentially two options. There are the general mainline prisoners, and then there are, for prisoners who break prison rules or are violent, there's something called the security housing unit, sometimes called the hole by prisoners, and also something called administrative segregation. These are very secure areas that are sort of prisons within the prisons. What officials thought was that they needed an intermediate step, something that would create incentives and also disincentives for rule breaking.
What's going on, you guys? Welcome back. Another episode of Green Lit Gang TV. Much love, much appreciation. Thank you guys so much for checking out the channel today. It means a lot. Really quick, if you are new to the channel, welcome. I hope you enjoy. I hope you like what you watch, like what you hear. I encourage you to go back, check out some of my other videos. If you are somebody who is returning for a second, third, fourth, fifth, 10th, 20th time, then you already know how much I appreciate you guys. I will say it again, as I always say, I am nothing without the followers and the supporters of this channel. I am humbled by how much we've grown in the year and 9 months that I've had this channel. Really quick, we're going to be sticking with the theme of 2025, covering attacks, murders, In this case, we've got a use of lethal force that staff had to use on inmates back in 2022. All of this is centered around, if you've watched any of my videos, centered around what's going on in the California prison system. It is an absolute joke. It is an absolute mess. Jeff McCumber, the head of the California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation. You've got Governor Gavin Newsom. They adopted this new prison model. It's an absolute joke. I encourage you to go do your homework on it, your research on it. It is putting staff's lives, it is putting inmates' lives at risk. I have said this before as well. If you have loved ones within the CDCR as inmates or workers, you should be worried. You should be scared. They are at risk. Right now, it's kind of a free-for-all going on. And like a channel I follow a lot, Hector Bravo, go check his channel out. He does a great job. Like he said, I couldn't say it any better, summer is coming. It's going to get warmer out. It's going to get hotter out. Things are going to get ratcheted up to 10. I'm telling you, I'm calling it right now. Just watch as summer slowly comes up on us. Okay, so that being said, we're going to be sticking within the theme of things throughout 2025. We're going to be going to High Desert State Prison, which is located in Susanville, California. We're going back to the end of 2022 to cover a case, like I said in the intro, of lethal force. But it is attack amongst inmates at first. These are Norteno gang members. They were attacking a fellow Norteno gang member. And if it wasn't for staff in this case, he would have lost his life. Now, I know sometimes we come across, I get comments, we come across like, oh, staff is bad, corrections officers are bad, they're the ones bringing in the phones and the contraband. And yes, there are bad ones. There are ones that bring in contraband, absolutely. But there are good ones as well. There are ones that just want to go do their jobs, do the best they can, and go home to their families and earn a living and pay their bills and live their lives. And that's just the facts. You can't just paint a broad brush and say, yep, they're all bad. No, they are not. And in this case, Anthony Aguilera owes his life to the corrections staff at High Desert State Prison. So let's jump right into it here. This is an article from CDCR on November 30th, the day after the attack. Susanville. The High Desert State Prison Investigation Services Unit, CDCR's Deadly Force Investigation Team, and the Lassen County District Attorney's Office are investigating the deaths of 2 incarcerated people who were fatally shot by 2 correctional officers while committing a stabbing assault on another incarcerated person. On Tuesday, November 29th, 10:52 a.m., Frank Nanez and Raul Cuen attacked Anthony Aguilera with inmate-manufactured weapons. Staff quickly responded, first issuing verbal orders to stop and get down, which were ignored. A warning shot from a Mini 14 was fired, which had no effect. Staff then fired additional rounds when the attack continued. Chemical agents were also deployed. Both Nanez and Cuen sustained gunshot wounds. No other incarcerated people or staff members were injured. The inmate-manufactured weapons were also recovered at the scene. Medical staff responded quickly and provided first aid to Aguilera, Cuen, and Nanez. Aguilera was transported to a local hospital for further treatment, and at the time he was hospitalized in serious condition. Both medical and custody staff performed CPR on Cuen and Nanez. However, Cuen was pronounced deceased. Oh, and I forgot to mention this in the intro. I've said both at 11:44 a.m. My bad. Cuen was pronounced deceased at 11:37 a.m. Nanez was pronounced deceased at 11:44 a.m. The officers who deployed the Mini 14 rounds are currently on administrative leave. Consistent with CDCR policy, their names are being withheld due to the ongoing investigation. Officials have limited movement on the yard where the incident happened to facilitate the investigation. The Office of the Inspector General was notified, and the Lassen County coroner will determine Nanez and Cuen's official cause of death. Even though we know what the cause of death was, they ate numerous Mini 14 bullets. Hard to feel bad for him. I can't lie. I really don't feel bad for him. You're trying to stab to death a fellow inmate. And that's what happens when you're in prison. You're trying to kill somebody, and they're issuing orders to stop, which it's expected that these commands are all going to be ignored. It's fully expected. It did not surprise me whatsoever that the verbal commands, the warning shots, this is what these guys are gang members. These guys are trained to go. A couple of these guys are convicted murderers. Another one's convicted of attempted murders. They're down for a long time. They're either doing life without or life with a chance of parole. These guys are seasoned. They're veterans. They've been around. They know what it is when they finally get a chance to tick off on someone, or they're doing a removal. In this case, this might be a removal because this was Norteno on Norteno, gang violence. They're going to go until something like this stops them. So, Raul Cuen, 48 years old, was admitted from Tulare County on January 27th, 1994. He was sentenced to life without the possibility of parole for first-degree murder with an enhancement for use of a deadly weapon. Frank Nanez, 32, was admitted from Tulare County on February 2nd, 2012, to serve 7 years to life without the possibility of parole for first-degree murder and attempted first-degree murder with multiple counts of an intentional discharge of a firearm. And our victim in this case, or initial victim, Anthony Aguilera, 38, he was admitted from Santa Clara County on March 2007 with a life with the possibility of parole sentence for attempted first and attempted second-degree murder, intentional discharge of a firearm, inflicting great bodily injury, and that infamous Street Gang Act enhancement and the commission of a violent felony also was tacked on. Now, I was able to get really good background information on Aguilera and Nanez. Now, Cuen, he's just the oldest. What I've kind of come to find when I cover these stories is if some of these guys' main crimes were committed in the mid, even the late 90s, especially in the early 90s, it's very hard to get any pictures. It's very hard to get any actual good information. I really try to find their appeals. Don't have a lot of luck with it. In this case of Cuen, I did not have much luck. But like I said just a couple seconds ago, came from Tulare County into CDCR on January 27th, 1994. He got life without for first-degree murder with the enhancement of a use of a deadly weapon. But I got really good information on our victim, Aguilera, on his case, really good information, and really also good information on Frank Nanez, one of our perpetrators. He's the one with the long hair, Norteno gang member. I was able to find his appeal online and really get some really good case details, so I'm excited to bring those details to you guys. Okay, Anthony Aguilera background. Now, this is an article on June 20th, 2006, as he's fighting his case that he ended up getting sentenced to all this time to, okay? Because remember, he got sentenced from Santa Clara County in March of 2007. So this is for that attempted first, attempted second-degree murder. Okay, article, June 20th, 2006, as his trial is going on. Basically, to give you kind of an idea what this is about him talking about if he's going to testify or not, what led up to this, and then actually he does decide to testify. Suspected gang member Anthony Aguilera is charged with 2 separate counts of attempted murder. San Martin, a soft-spoken Anthony Aguilera took the stand in his own defense, quote, to clear up everything that was falsely stated in the previous 5 days of his attempted murder trial at Santa Clara County Superior Court on Monday. Aguilera, who was only 22 at the time, is a suspected Norteno gang member charged with 2 separate attempted murder counts, 2 counts of assault with a deadly weapon, shooting into an inhabited vehicle, and evading arrest. He is the primary suspect in the shooting of a Gilroy man in a liquor store parking lot on October 23rd, 2004, and also in the stabbing of a 24-year-old suspected drug dealer at Extended Stay America Hotel on January 26th, 2005. So Aguilera was active, man. This guy was getting down. He was with the business. Like a lot of Norteños are, he was just putting in work in the streets. He's young. He's full of whatever, and he's ready to go at all times. A second suspect, 21-year-old Daniel Zuniga of Gilroy, faces separate attempted murder charges in the October shooting. Aguilera admitting to stabbing Gilroy resident Mike Hernandez in a fight in November 2004 at a mutual friend's house after Hernandez insulted him. The two stepped outside to talk and fight. Aguilera took it to the next level. He pulled out his pocket knife, and he says in defense, when the victim kept coming at him, Aguilera said, I take that as Aguilera might have been losing the fight, and Mike Hernandez was going to make sure he stayed down, and Aguilera got up and pulled a knife out. Aguilera's mother and sister sat together, clasping hands as he testified, wearing a light blue dress shirt and tie, speaking calmly to defense attorney Andy Tercy. And that's something a lot of people don't think about, that they gloss over in this, but the effect it has on your family when you are in court, when you are in the streets, when you are on drugs, when you are just basically doing wrong, the effect it has on your loved ones. If you can picture him in court testifying, he's a young man, he's got his whole life ahead of him, and his mom and his sister, who probably love him more than anyone in the world, are sitting there squeezing each other's hands till they probably turn white, praying that their brother and their son doesn't go away forever. During the 3-hour testimony, Aguilera admitted to attorney Tercy that he hit alleged San Martin drug dealer Scott Bargar in the back of the head with an unloaded BB gun in an attempt to make off with both the marijuana and the money, but the man did not hit the ground. Instead, He turned around, grabbed the gun from Aguilera, and pointed it at his head, which is, I guess it's a BB gun, but still that might hurt. I don't think that's going to kill you. Aguilera would begin testifying. Quote, he said, I'm walking out of here alive, and you're staying here dead, he said. Quote, he kept reaching into his shirt, and he started walking towards me. I saw something shiny. Bargar testified earlier that he was, quote, fighting for his life when he stabbed Aguilera with a box cutter in a Morgan Hill hotel room. Both men required stitches for their facial wounds. However, Bargar suffered life-threatening injuries when he was stabbed in the neck. Aguilera denies pulling the trigger in the October 23rd shooting. He told Tercy that he approached a vehicle in a liquor store parking lot to talk to the female passengers inside when he heard gunshots and took off running. Despite accusations by police and witness testimony regarding his gang affiliation, Aguilera said he is not a gang member but was labeled one early on by educators and police because some of the friends growing up were. Quote, whoever it was, they gave me that label, he said. If you hang out with those people and you associate with those people when you're categorized as one, then you're categorized as one. But Aguilera's mild manner changed to small outbursts of frustration, and this is what these prosecutors and these lawyers are trained to do, when cross-examined by Deputy District Attorney Stuart Scott. Stewart pressed him about his gang membership, bringing up incidents from Aguilera's youth, and questioned his involvement in the October shooting. Scott played a jail tape recording between Zuniga and Aguilera and asked what he meant by telling Zuniga, quote, homies are willing to bat for you if it comes down to it, and questioned whether he was helping create a false alibi. Aguilera testified with his hands folded and debated Scott during much of his testimony. He said he was not helping Zuniga lie, but offering to assist him in any types of or needs he may have. Aguilera told Scott that the slang words he uses in his tattoos do not necessarily mean he is a gang member. Quote, it doesn't specifically mean what you are trying to make it sound like, he said. In the days before the trial, Aguilera debated whether to testify. Tercy, his lawyer, said outside the courtroom, we talked about it all along. We always said it was his decision to make, he said. Quote, he said there's a lot of false information and he wanted to tell his side. Aguilera would tell his mother, Barbara, he felt he had to testify Monday. Quote, he said, Mom, I got to say what I need to say because nobody else is, she said. Trial continues with the conclusion of Aguilera's testimony. And then another article from July 8th. So that article about the trial and everything was June 20th, 06. Fast forward, there's an article of July 8th, 06. He was found guilty on 5 felony counts and 1 misdemeanor. A jury found him guilty. At the time, he was looking as much as 52 years. Asked about his client, Andrew Tercy said he was asked about his client, who was dressed neatly in brown slacks, white button-down shirt, and demure tie, was holding up after hearing the verdict trial. Tercy said, very well, he's a man. His mother, Barbara, and other family members, however, sobbed quietly. Deputy District Attorney Stuart Scott told jurors Aguilera's trademark is coming up behind people or surprising them in the attack. Quote, the common theme is he sneaks up on people, ambushes them, and not a single situation does he confront someone face-to-face in a fair fight, he said. Barbara Aguilera said the comments were hard to take. Quote, he didn't hurt any children. He loves children, she said of the young man who spent 2 years in a California Youth Authority facility before the shooting and the stabbing. The gang and weapon enhancements to the charges could add years to Aguilera's sentence if an appeal is not successful. That's what we always talk about on this channel. I feel like I've harped on that forever. This is what his mom said. Those enhancements, they could bury a kid. They offered him 26 years, but he said no. He didn't want that because his life would be over. Sad, man. This is sad. But Aguilera, too, it's kind of like, man, you're living life. You're obviously doing wrong. And I'm not going to say karma. I don't want to go too much into it, but I always find it interesting when some of these guys, you're coming up behind people, you're stabbing people, you're hurting people from behind, you're taking what are supposed to be fist fights, or you're kind of losing a fight and you stab a guy. I always find it interesting that you fast forward, 15 years, however long it is, and you yourself find yourself kind of ambushed on the other side of it, where you're used to creeping up on people, hitting them when they can't least expect it, not really a fair fight. He ends up, in this case that we're covering, getting jumped by 2 guys. So he does survive, but things always seem to come full circle. Okay, that takes us to Frank Nanez. Now, he was convicted of murder, and the guy he killed was I was able to find a picture of him, his obituary, a beloved member of the community. That was Angel Guzman. Very interesting story, very, very interesting story. And I was able to find Frank Nanez's appeal. Now, this appeal was from May 15th, 2014. I'm just going to read to it. This is from the facts of the case. Around 7:30 p.m. on July 31st, 2009, Visalia police officers were dispatched to a house on South Santa Fe Avenue of a reported shooting. Officer Brian Ferrara went to the front door and saw Angel Guzman lying on his back inside the threshold of the doorway. Christian Rodriguez held Guzman's head up off the ground. Ferrara saw blood all over Guzman's head. He had been shot in the back of the head. Guzman was taken to the hospital by ambulance and he died the next day. To give you a little background on Angel Guzman, I was able to read from his obituary that his family put up. He was born in Guadalajara, Mexico on August 10th, 1987, and he lived there until he was 11 years old. Officer Blake McCune took an initial statement from Christian. Christian said the shooter was named Frank, whom he knew because they had gone to school together. He described Frank as a Hispanic male adult, approximately 19 years old and 6 foot tall, thin to medium build with a dark complexion and short black hair. Christian saw Frank pull out a smaller caliber handgun and begin to shoot it at him and his 2 friends. There was another man with Frank. Christian described him as a Hispanic adult male, approximately and also 19 years of age, wearing a white t-shirt about 5 foot 5 inches tall, thin build with a goatee and light complexion. Christian had seen him often in the neighborhood walking with a skateboard. Sergeant Curtis Brown recorded an interview with witness Arnulfo Rodriguez on the day of the shooting. Arnulfo, who is not related to Christian, said he had just returned from the store with Guzman and Christian, and they were standing in front of Guzman's car. Arnulfo saw 2 guys walking. One was wearing a red shirt and the other was wearing a white tank top. He recognized them but did not know their names. The one in the red shirt fired 5 or 6 shots. Arnulfo saw the gun. It was black and appeared to be a semi-automatic. Arnulfo ran to the backyard, and Christian and Guzman ran to the front door of the house. About 2 hours after the shooting, officers showed Arnulfo a photographic lineup, and he identified Frank Nanez as the shooter. He said the shooter was wearing red, and he recognized him from school. He said the shooter ran with Northerners. Arnulfo had never seen the man in the white tank top before. Remember, that's the little 5 foot 5 guy that he thought, the other guy, Christian, thought carried a skateboard. Police found 5 spent shell casings with the markings WW32 Auto in front of the house where Guzman was shot. They found 3 holes in the front door screen and 1 hole in the frame that were consistent with bullet strikes. There was also 2 marks consistent with bullet strikes on the exterior of the house near the front door. A bullet was found inside the house in the living room that matched the bullet recovered from Guzman. A neighbor later found another shell casing in the flower bed. On December 18th, 2009, the Tulare County District Attorney filed an information against Nanez and Michael Bobby Davis, charging both defendants with murders. 2 counts of attempted murder and shooting in an inhabited dwelling. Co-defendant Davis basically snitches on Nanez. He reaches a plea agreement within a couple years on May 23rd, 2011. He then agreed to testify in all court proceedings related to the murder of Guzman. So it's just like he took the deal. In exchange, he would be allowed to enter a plea of guilty or no contest to voluntary manslaughter and attempted voluntary manslaughter and to admit to the gang special allegations. All other pending charges would be dismissed and he would receive a sentence of 21 years in state prison. Then, on July 18th, 2011, the district attorney filed a 4th Amendment information against Nanez. And this is kind of like the final charging document. He was charged with the murder of Guzman, the attempted murder of Christian, the attempted murder of Arnulfo, and the shooting in an inhabited dwelling. For count 1, it was alleged that Nanez intentionally killed Guzman while Nanez was an active participant in a criminal street gang, and the murder was carried out for the furtherance of the gang and also the activities of the criminal street gang. For all counts, it was alleged that Nanez or a principal personality and intentionally discharged a firearm. The intentional discharge of the firearm caused the great bodily injury or death, and Nanez committed the offense for the benefit of or at the direction of or in association with the criminal street gang. It's always a mouthful, but it's what we always talk about, guys. It's always about the gang enhancements. Yes, the murder is obviously the number one, but this is this language and this lingo. That's why I read it like that, even though I get tongue-tied. And I'm not going to lie, I'm a little tired today. I know I'm not pronouncing things right, but the point is all of that language matters. Now, in this appeal, to just give you a quick breakdown before we read more of the specifics, Nanez really tried to fight hard with these gang enhancements. He really tried to say that did not play a part, that it was not for the benefit of his gang. He lost all that. The charges and the filing of the paperwork stayed as it was. Now, this is a prosecution's case. Christian testified that Guzman was his cousin and they lived together at the house on South Santa Fe where the shooting occurred. He identified Nanez as the shooter. On the evening of the shooting, Christian was standing outside the house in the driveway talking with his friend, Arnulfo and Guzman. He was wearing baby blue and waiting for his brother to pick him up for work. He saw two people approaching northbound on Santa Fe, so it's kind of already right there, right? It's like he's wearing baby blue. Nanez was wearing a red shirt, and the other man was wearing that white tank top. Christian thought the one in the white had a skateboard, but he was not sure. He had seen the man in the white in the area with the skateboard, but he did not know his name. At first, Nanez and the other man were walking, and as they got closer, they started running. They ran side by side with Nanez on the side closer to the house. Christian saw Nanez reach for a gun from his waist. Christian heard a popping noise, and he ran inside the house. He did not hear anyone say anything. Guzman also ran towards the house, and Arnulfo ran to the backyard. After he was inside the house, Christian saw Guzman lying down in the living room, bleeding from his head. Christian covered the wound and called 911. That's sad. Christian spoke to several officers after the shooting and consistently identified Frank Nanez as the shooter. He recognized Nanez immediately because they attended the same middle school and high school and had classes together. He also saw Nanez walk by all the time in that neighborhood. Nanez associated with Norteños. Christian was not a gang member, but he hung out with Sureños. Arnulfo was a gang member of Loco Park, a subset of the Sureños. Guzman was not involved in gangs. Christian did not recognize the man with Nanez as a gang member. He thought he, quote, looked more like a skater. In the past, Christian had never had any problems with either Nanez or the other man. He had no reason to think Arnulfo had any problems with Nanez. So it looks like because Arnulfo is a Loco Park Sureño, that might have been what kicked it off, including, the baby blue shirt and all that. And this is what you get, man. When you get young, active gang members, it's what it is. It's absolutely what it is. And then other witnesses would testify, backing up all this stuff. And in the end, Frank Nanez was found guilty and convicted of murder. And it's really sad because you picture they're outside of Guzman's house. They're hanging out. And then Guzman and Christian, they're not realizing that Arnulfo, maybe they hang out with friends, but they're young, man. They're not quite putting two and two together that this is where they're going to get shot at. And Guzman is realizing this is where he's going to die because of some association, because of Arnulfo being a Sureño. And just like that, snap of your fingers, it's over. Your life is over at a very, very young age. So there you guys have it. Wanted to change it up a little bit. I thought this was an interesting story, being that it ended with a use of force by staff at High Desert State Prison, Frank Nanez and Raul Cuen. And in the end, Anthony Aguilera was able to escape with his life. So very interesting, very crazy. Please comment down below. Hit the like button. Leave a comment. Engage in the conversation and subscribe. It means a lot. Until next time, peace.